Welcome to Balatro. You've just bought the game, you've had your butt handed to you by the fish, and you're thinking to yourself, this is great, I want more. Well, here's your more. This is a comprehensive guide to Balatro for beginners and intermediate players alike. You'll learn how to find the best jokers, how to manage your economy, and how to win close to 100% of your runs at White Stake. My name is Autumn Chu, I've beaten Gold Stake with every deck and finished every challenge, and this is my complete guide to Balatro. I'm going to assume you have a working knowledge of the basic mechanics of Balatro, how to play hands, what jokers are, and all the rest. And I assume your questions are not how to play the game, but how to play the game well. If you're unclear on some mechanics or even what Balatro is, well, first of all, welcome. And second of all, you can supplement your knowledge by consulting the wiki or just playing the game. Alright, let's get into it. Balatro has a lot of mechanics, jokers, planet cards, tower cards, etc., but for most of this video I'm going to focus strictly on jokers. In my experience, it's possible to win every run using jokers alone, and in some ways it's actually easier because you don't spend a bunch of money on stuff you don't need. So let's start by talking about the types of jokers. I generally categorize jokers into 5 types: chips, plus mult, times mult, economic, and utility. The categories are pretty self-explanatory. Chips give you chips, mult gives you mult, economic gives you money, you know. Times mult cards are a little different because they multiply the mults that came before them, which of course means you should put them on the right side of your inventory, and utility jokers have special effects that improve your run in some hard to quantify way. Pretty much every joker can be effective if used correctly, except for Space Joker because Jesus Christ, but to make your life easier, I'll just give you an Exodia combo that'll get you through 99% of your games. First, you need plus chips. Usually you want just one plus chips card, but you can take more if the rest of your build is really strong. Special standouts in this category are Banner, Blue Joker, and Square Joker, and on the uncommon/rare side, Bull, Stuntman, and Wii Joker. There are others, but those are my favorite. Second, you need a big plus mult source. You ideally want just one of these as well, and really what you're looking for is scaling cards. These include Green Joker, Supernova, Ceremonial Dagger, Flash Card, and a whole bunch more. The reason why you want scaling is because scaling lets you compress a whole bunch of mult onto a single joker. Joker slots are the bottleneck of this game, and you want to use as many of them as possible on times mult cards. Times mult cards are like your endgame finishing moves. They suck at low mult, but once your scaling joker is at like 50 plus, they stack with each other to push you to ludicrous values. Ideally, you want to use your 3 remaining slots on times mult cards, but if you just get 1 or 2, you can probably still win. So to recap, your ideal setup is 1 chip joker, 1 scaling mult joker, and 3 times mult jokers. Now, is this the only way to win in Balatro? Absolutely not. I know you can use planet cards and tarot cards for chips and mult, and I know that if you do, you can use 5 times mult jokers instead of 3, and I know that you can put red seal on glass cards and steel cards for insane scaling, and I know you can use idle and delete every card in your deck and get a million bazillion points. I know all that stuff. But my goal here is not to cover every possible combo in Balatro. My goal is to give you a formula that's easy to remember, easy to execute, and will maximize your win rate at every stake. This is a build that will teach you the fundamentals of Balatro, and you need to master the fundamentals before you do the advanced stuff, and figure out the cool combos when you're comfortable. So what I've just told you is the ideal endgame state, but if you try to build it directly, you'll quickly get mulched. So the question is, how do we get to that perfect endgame? In order to do so, we need to talk about economy. As you may have noticed, Balatro has an interest mechanic where for every $5 in your bank, you earn $1 per round, up to a cap of 5 by default. This means that if you have a bank of $25, you'll score $5 extra per round, and that's a lot of money over time. Your big picture economic goal is to get to $25 as quickly as possible, then spend all of your money above that on jokers and rerolls. Why rerolls, you ask? Because the more jokers you see, the more likely it is you'll get a good one. But Autumn, I hear you ask, what about the planet cards? What about the tarot cards? What if I'd rather open packs and reroll? No. Don't do it, and here's why. Let's say, hypothetically, you have $24 to spend on anything you want. If you spent all that money on planet cards, you would get 24 over 3 equals 8 planet cards total, and if each is worth 2 mult, you can get 16 mult overall. However, if you instead reroll 3 times and get a ramen, you get a 2x mult instead. Assuming you have, for example, Gross Michelle and Smiley Face, that's plus 19 mult. But Autumn, you ask again, doesn't that mean the value of a reroll is conditional on my build? Wouldn't I rather have the guaranteed mult from packs? No, and stop talking. Let's say you have another $24 and you spend it again on planet cards. If the world still makes sense, you'll get another 16 mults. However, if you instead rerolled another 3 times and picked up a Seeing Double, that Seeing Double is now worth plus 38 mults. Why? Because Seeing Double will multiply the mult from Gross Michelle, Smiley Face, and Ramen. In the business, we call that exponential growth. And that exponential growth is so powerful that it overshadows the linear value you get from planet cards. That's why I spend a crazy amount of money on rerolls every run. I'm digging for a handful of power cards that'll skyrocket my build. So in brief, save up money, get to $25 ASAP, and live off the interest. Buy economic jokers if the rest of your build can clear the next few fights. They pay for themselves really quickly. And when in doubt, err on the side of buying more jokers. You can always sell them to recoup some money, and better to lose a few dollars than to lose the entire run. So now we have a good understanding of the fundamentals, jokers and economy. Let's apply them to construct a practical game plan. In the first couple of antes, your goal is to survive while spending as little money as possible. That's because you want to grow to $25 as quickly as you can. That being said, you won't last very long buying no jokers, so you want the ones you do purchase to be as impactful as possible. In the early game, you want to look for any plus mult effect and combine it with a 5-card hand. The 5-card hand gives you chips and the plus mult card gives you mult, which will hopefully let you 1 to 2 shot every fight. The first mult card you buy can be worth as little as 4 mult and still be usable, but once you have that first bit, you usually only want to spend your money on cards worth 15 plus mult. As the first couple antes continue, you can add in other power jokers as you see them. While you want to exit the early game with at least $20, don't pass up a blackboard or golden joker just for that goal. If you finish ante 2 with 3 to 4 decent value jokers and $20 in the bank, you're doing great. But if you have less money or fewer jokers, the game's still absolutely playable. You should also keep an eye out for scaling jokers. The earlier you get one, the better of course, and you want to start growing it now because by the time of the late game, you'll need a big source of seed mult to feed to your times mult cards. And as I've said elsewhere, you can also use planet cards and tarot cards to fulfill that role, but in my experience, scaling jokers are more reliable. You really only need one, so don't go overboard. If you grab too many scaling cards for later, your chip output now will be too low to survive. Once you enter ante 3, you should be reliably finishing fights in 1 to 2 hands and accumulating a lot of money from interest in economic jokers. So now it's time to spend that money on rerolls. You're generally looking for one of 4 things: strong plus chips, meaning at least 50 per joker, strong plus mult, meaning at least 15 per joker, a scaling joker if you don't have one already, or any times mult effect for the late game. Like with scaling jokers, you want to be careful about taking more than one economic joker, since having only 3 scoring jokers might just end your run. Once you have a healthy amount of chips and mult from jokers, you can transition into the low hand path, meaning that instead of digging for 5-card hands, you can just play pairs and high cards and rely on your jokers to generate your score. This is a great position to be in, because you can never get screwed by an unlucky draw. If you play a random number card and still one-shot a fight, you're doing great. Your goal by the end of ante 4 is to have 1 scaling joker, a mix of chips and mult, optionally 1 economic joker, and at least $25 in the bank. That'll set you up for a really clean mid to late game. Once you hit ante 5 and your build is taking off, you want to reroll for your times mult jokers specifically. You really need to grow exponentially to keep up with the stakes, so don't get complacent just because you're one-shotting every fight. When you do see a times mult joker, sell your mult jokers first, aside from the scaling joker of course, then your economic joker, and finally your chips if you really need space. Make sure to keep your highest value chip joker because you need that seed value to score well. Now is a great time to start thinking about the final boss. Violet Vessel is the hardest and you need 80k chips per hand if you want to beat it. Crimson Heart is also difficult and will dud a couple of hands, but with 50k to 60k per hand as a baseline, you can probably still win. Amber Acorn is essentially a -1 to your hand count because you can rearrange your jokers after you play your first hand, meaning you can beat it with just 34k per hand. Verdant Leaf and Cerulean Bell are non-issues for this strategy because your jokers are so powerful that individual cards are irrelevant. You can beat them with just 25k. Hopefully by ante 7 you have all the pieces you need to win. While you can try for a last minute pivot if you're desperate, the last few shots are generally for tweaks and optimization via planet cards, tarot cards, and a few extra points as scaling. If you've been keeping pace, the final boss should be a breeze. It's pretty easy to reach the point where you can one-shot the final boss regardless of its ability. And that's that. By following these steps, you have a great chance of clearing ante 8. It's worth noting that Balatro is a very fluid game. You might not see a good chip joker till ante 5, so you can rely on 5-card hands and tarot cards for your chips until then. Or you might see a big times mult joker in ante 2 and buy it early even though it's not valuable yet. The point of this game plan is to give you a rough outline of where you should be at each stage of the game, and you can adjust it on the fly according to the jokers you see. But the more you play, the more you can let your intuition and knowledge guide you. So that's all the most important stuff out of the way, but I know you still have questions, so I'm going to address them one by one. The first one you probably have is, when should I buy planet cards and tarot cards? And relatedly, when should I be opening packs? We'll talk about shop cards first and packs after since they're kind of different. For economic tarot cards, you can pretty much always buy them, and you use them as soon as you get at least $15 from them. Empress, Hierophant, and Tower are all worth buying and holding if you suspect you'll struggle with the next fight, and for whatever reason you can't pick up a scoring joker, either you're out of inventory space, or you need a couple more rounds for your scaling to kick in, or you've just gotten some unlucky rolls. Death, Strength, Lovers, and the suit changing cards can all fix up your hand if you need a 5-card hand to win a fight, so they're worth buying and holding in a pinch. Wheel of Fortune and Judgment you can pick up as economy allows, Hanged Man if you have card removal synergy or key cards you want to dig for, and the others aren't worth that much in most runs. You should only buy them if you have a specific synergy, like selling the planet cards from Priestess to feed to Campfire. When in doubt, default to not buying tarot cards because you'd rather use that money for rerolls and jokers. Opening packs is a different game from buying shop cards because you don't have the control of using a pack tarot card at a clutch moment. Generally, you can open packs if you have all the jokers you want, and you want to fix up your deck to get value out of the cards in your hand. That means you're looking for Empress, Hierophant, and Tower again. Other tarot cards are just kind of pack filler, and because the playing card effects are affected by luck of the draw, I think tarot card improvements are worth less than their equivalent in jokers, but once you've maxed out on joker value, the tarot cards give you a little bit of a boost. I usually don't start opening tarot packs until I'm done re-rolling, and even then only if I'm sure I don't need the money for something else. Planet cards are almost never worth the cost. The low hands scale too slowly to be meaningful, the mid hands aren't reliable to dig for without deck fixing, and the high hands are even harder to find. I'll pick up an odd high card or pair if I'm in the late game and my build is locked in, but other than that I'll usually pass on them. The same goes for planet packs. I'll generally only open them if I have Telescope, a maxed out build, or some kind of planet card synergy like Constellation. Standard packs you should almost never open unless you have a joker that synergizes with the big deck. And even then, keep in mind that every playing card you add to your deck reduces the chance of drawing any particular card, meaning your deck will be less consistent overall. Joker packs, on the other hand, I'll almost always buy if I'm not maxed out. To see 2 fresh jokers and buy one of them usually costs 1 reroll plus the joker cost, which is generally at least $8. To see 4, I would need to reroll twice, bumping that to $14. The 2 joker and 4 joker packs cost $4 and $6 respectively, a big discount from their equivalent value in the shop. And the mega pack is worth it even if you only have 1 joker slot, because $8 to see 4 jokers is still well above the equivalent in rerolls. Finally, a note on spectral packs. If you're a new player, you should buy them whenever you see them. The effects are wacky, game-breaking, and really fun, and if you pull a cool effect, it's a blast to try to build your run around it. However, for my games, I don't actually buy them that often. A lot of the spectral cards are kind of duds for my game plan. None of the seals are that impactful, the joker destroying effects are unusable by NT3, and adding enchanted cards to my deck doesn't matter if I'm just playing a random number card every hand. I think if you're going for a more consumable heavy deck fixing run, spectral cards may be worth more, but for me personally, I'll usually only buy them for the style points you get from a nice ectoplasm, immolate, or soul. In short, while packs can be good situationally, I found more luck focusing on jokers and rerolls, and mostly ignore packs until my build is set. Now that being said, there is an alternative approach that focuses much more on consumables and considers jokers to be incidental. Using deck fixing tarot cards, you can drastically improve your chances of making 5-card hands and even secret hands, and then you can use the corresponding planet cards to generate value. This is a very playable approach at the low stakes, but as you move up, money gets tighter, packs get more expensive, and it becomes harder to reach that critical mass where you're playing 5 of a kind or a straight flush every hand. When I first started playing Balatro, I advocated for the deck fixing strategy, but now that I'm more experienced, I like to focus on jokers more because they're more consistent across all stakes. But you can definitely experiment with both and see what you like more. Autumn from the future here. I wrote and voiced and edited the previous section before 101F came out, and I think tarot cards might be stronger in the new version of Gold Stake, so I'm going to investigate and get back to you on that. Generally speaking, you should only buy vouchers if you have at least $35 and your build is strong enough that you're not desperate for rerolls. There are a few exceptions that I'll note as we go through them, but vouchers are very much extra tidbits and not core generators of value. I sort vouchers into 4 types: economic, shop modifiers, hands and discards, and special. Let's go through each of them in turn. Economic vouchers are ones that directly impact your money and how to spend it. Of these, I'm most fond of reroll surplus and overstock. These both make it easier to see a lot of jokers in the shop, and you should usually get them even if it zeroes out your bank. Clearance sale is less valuable because the number of jokers you buy is pretty low, although it can be good for campfire and red card if you have them. Seed money is situational. I'll get it if I already have a big bank and don't need the money for something else, but it's not worth it to try to build up to $50 for it if your economy isn't already good. I distinguish shop modifiers from economic jokers because they're more about the cards you see than the money you spend. Most of these are pretty useless. Hone sucks because the enhancements are too random to be valuable, and Tarot Merchant, Planet Merchant, and Magic Trick all dilute the shop pool so that you see fewer jokers, the opposite of what you want. Telescope is the only shop modifier I'll usually consider taking, since it can help you get a lot of levels onto high card or whatever else you're interested in. Crystal Ball can smooth out your game if you're focusing on consumables, but for the hand independent joker strat, it's pretty useless. Unlike the shop modifiers, the hand and discard vouchers are really strong and you'll want to take them in most runs. Grabber I will gladly buy at $10 because the extra hand means both more chip output and more money over time. It is the best voucher by far. Wasteful is not quite as good, but it's usually worth buying at $25 or more since the extra discards mean it's easier to dig for key cards, and the jokers that synergize with discards are quite powerful. Paintbrush can be worth it if you need to play a lot of 5-card hands, but if you're truly hand independent, it's kind of a waste of money. That being said, it does increase the chance you draw into a cool enhanced card, so you can still buy it at $35. Finally, there are some vouchers that have really interesting special effects. Hieroglyph and Petroglyph are both situational. Essentially, you're getting a short-term boost by replaying an ante, seeing more shops, and growing your scaling jokers and stuff at the long-term cost of -1 hand. Hands are a precious resource in Balatro, so consider carefully whether losing one is worth it in the long run. Petro Petroglyph is probably worth it if you bought Hieroglyph already, unless you have a banner or something. Director's Cut, on the other hand, is worth buying almost every run. The easiest way to lose is to run into a random boss fight that screws you over, and Director's Cut ensures that never happens. Finally, there's Blank. If you didn't already know, buying Blank unlocks the possibility of getting Antimatter, which adds an entire Joker slot to your build. Needless to say, it's really good. But spending $10 to do nothing and maybe get Antimatter later in the run is a tough sell. I'll do it if I don't have anything else to buy, but if my build isn't complete, I'd rather have the 2 rerolls. In short, buy Grabber, Overstock, and reroll always. Buy Director's Cut, Wasteful, Seed Money, Telescope, Clearance Sale, and Blank if you're rich. Buy Crystal Ball, Paintbrush, and Hieroglyph situationally. For the rest, don't even bother. As you know, every ante ends in a boss fight, and each boss fight is designed to mess with a particular style of deck. The nice thing about the hand-independent Joker strategy is that you get to ignore most of them. All the face-down cards and debuff bosses are non-issues, the mouth is a joke, and the flint and the arm are irrelevant because you don't use levels anyway. The bosses you're most worried about are the Psychic, the Eye, the Ox, the Tooth, and the Wall. The Psychic isn't too hard to play around since you can attach 4 random cards to a high card easily. What could make it annoying is if you have hand size effects like Square Joker and Half Joker. Square Joker is just annoying, but if your build is relying on Half Joker for Molt, the Psychic can end your run immediately, so make sure you have another Molt source in that case. The Eye is more difficult, especially if you're relying on Supernova or Card Sharp for value. Make sure you have a way to score from pairs and 2 pairs, and count your cards carefully to grab a 5-card hand if needed. The Ox and the Tooth don't hurt your scoring directly, but they do mess with your economy. The Tooth isn't so bad if you just play 1 card per hand, but the Ox is really annoying if you're forced into high card, so either have a way to get value from pairs, or accept the $0. Finally, the Wall can mess you up if you're barely scraping by in score, so try to stay well above the score thresholds just in case, and use tarot cards if you need a little boost. All in all, hand-independent builds have a really easy time dealing with bosses, so for the most part you can just sit back and laugh at them. A question I anticipate seeing is, if I see Ancient Joker or Idol or Mime or Baron or other crazy high-scoring Joker in the shop, how do I know if I should go for it or stick to the hand-independent strategy? The answer really depends on what your goals are for the game. For me personally, I'm most interested in win rate. I find a lot of joy in figuring out strategies that maximize win rate. I don't play runs past ante 8, and I don't build around trying to get the highest score possible. I feel like high scores are more about luck of the draw and commitment to the bit than strategic decision making, and I find those runs less interesting as a result. So my answer is, if I see X Joker with the potential to build a crazy combo around it, I usually will not take it because I prefer to win consistently than get a high score. But if your goal isn't to maximize your win rate and your goal is to watch number go up, then by all means go for the combo. Most of the time you'll get screwed by not having the right cards at the right time, and you'll die randomly at ante 8 because you bet it all on AAA and lost. But the times you do hit and get a million gazillion chips in one hand, those moments make it all worth it. For you. Maybe. Just know that in the time it took you to hit that big combo, I just won another 3 runs at White Stake. Finally, a quick note on Endless Mode. I do not care about Endless Mode. I don't think Endless Mode is a particularly interesting space in which to evaluate cards and strategies, because Endless Mode is less about making intelligent strategic decisions about your jokers and economy, and more about crossing your fingers and hoping you get the jokers you're planning around. If you're someone who finds joy in trying to push to the highest ante you can in Endless Mode, all power to you, and good luck on your journey. But for me, the real game of Balatro takes place under ante 8. That's when I feel most at home. That concludes my guide to Balatro. I tried to make it as comprehensive as I could while keeping it to a reasonable length. If you have any lingering questions, throw them in the comments and I'll respond as soon as I can. If you made it this far, please subscribe too, so that my life doesn't feel like such a waste of time. And as with most things in life, the best way to get better at Balatro is just to play a whole lot. So fire up the game, savor the victories, learn from the losses, and enjoy the journey to the fullest. I'll catch you next time. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to me on Patreon. You'll gain access to a Discord server where I'm active every day, and also a new show called The Weekly Babble, where I ramble about my many special interests, including books, music, chess, the fate of humanity, and whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. Click the link in the description to check it out.